Do we care what other people think? Yes, we do. Some people say, I don't care what anyone thinks. Yeah, they do. In fact, people who say that generally care more than anyone else. So let's talk about other people's opinions. Do they matter? Why should I think about it? Why do people have so many opinions? By the way, we're going to go deeper. An opinion, a judgment. How about this? How about criticism? These things are all related. We're going to talk about that. What is the value of it? How do I look at it? What if it's a family member? What do I do about it? How do I look at this? And how do I manage it in a way that I'm better off? My name is James MacNeil. I'm so thrilled that you're here. Hopefully you have no judgment or opinions about my bald head. It's the one I've got. I'm very excited to be sharing with you. I am the author of Pure Spiritual Intelligence, and these are questions that were given to me. So please ask your questions. Submit any question, comment, love, like, share, do all the things you're supposed to do. And the more you tell me you want, the more I produce for you. So here we go. Let's talk about other people's opinions. So let's start with one of the questions is why does everyone have so many opinions about others? So let's start with this. Yes, it's true. A lot of people have a lot of opinions, a lot of judgments, a lot of criticisms, and that's normal. Now, one of the main reasons is that the person is not at peace with themselves. They're not in what's called the adult ego state. They're not in a now in Zen connected to source state. And so when the ego is provoked, the ego loves to create separation and desperation. It loves to separate, to create a gap between us and others, and to notice, oh, they're this or they're that. Whether we see them as above us or below us, as long as we see them as separate from us, our ego's happy. The ego wants us to be all alone, kind of like some politics, trying to separate and weaken us as a species, as a society, rather than realizing the truth that we're all part of one beautiful love soup. Sorry, I digress. I had to get that in. Why? Because it's who I am. All right, back to opinions. So it is the ego that judges, and is one of the greatest, you know what, I don't know if you study much of what Jesus said, but you don't have to be a Christian to read his stuff, good stuff. And he said, do not judge more than just about anything. Like he didn't say don't have sex, as much as he said do not judge. So if you're going to decide what to do, okay, sorry, back to work. So people have opinions, people have judgments, people have criticisms, and some of those people are our families. And I love this one quote: if you really think you're enlightened, go to a family dinner. They know how to push your buttons. Okay, so let's talk about it. First of all, people have opinions. That's a fact. And it doesn't have to be our business. There's a great book title, What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. Great title for a book. And so I want you to know that, number one, we don't have to be victim of other people's judgment, criticisms, or advice, or opinions. We don't have to be. Then, is there value in it? So let's play the game as far as criticism, okay? So if I was to ask you, do you like criticism? Just about everyone says no. Nobody enjoys criticism. If someone said, James, you look stupid with that beard. By the way, that's what my mom says every time I see my mom. Well, she doesn't say stupid. She says, you look ridiculous, which is so much nicer. She also says I look like 100 years old because it's gray and no woman will ever love me. Just saying. But that's how my mother says, I love you, Jimmy. So it's all good. But I speak mom, so I understand that she's saying nice things. So if someone was to criticize you, your beard or your hair or something, do you enjoy it? And most people would say no. Okay, next. What makes criticism okay? In what context would you say that's helpful or that's good? Well, the word we use, you probably already thought of it, is constructive criticism. Construct, which means to create. Constructive criticism makes it worth it. It's uncomfortable, like going to the dentist isn't happy times, right? But even if they dope us up, it's still not worth it. But it's worth it in the long run because we have whatever. So sometimes something uncomfortable is still in our best interest. And so sometimes criticism could be in our best interest if it is constructive. Are you with me? Beautiful. Next. What makes constructive criticism constructive? Well, I've asked classes all over the world, and I'll tell you what they told me. You can tell me if you agree. Number one, if the person knows what the hell they're talking about. Number two, if they actually are trying to help. Number three, if they love me. If they do it privately instead of in front of other people. If they give good advice. I get like 100 different things that, as long as it's all these things, then it can qualify as constructive. Okay, now, who makes it constructive? I do. So you could be rude, mean, not like me, try and hurt me, try and humiliate me publicly. You could say the meanest thing you can think of. And I, if I was enlightened, right, if I was in a Zen state, I might say, you know what? I got a lot of value out of what you just said. That really helps me. Now that might piss you off when you're trying to hurt me, but I could actually turn anything into constructive criticism, because it being constructive or not is not about the other person, it's about me. So you can make all criticism constructive. You can make everyone's opinion constructive, everyone's judgment constructive. You can get benefit out of anything this world throws at you. It's just stimuli. There's a stimulation response, stimuli response. And so you can choose in the gap between stimulation and response, between stimuli and response, you can choose anything. And this is the work of Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, that in that gap between stimulus and response, we can choose anything. You can say, you're a jerk. I can say, thank you, I love you too. Like, I could choose how I interpret the data. And some people interpret the world in beautiful ways, other people in very destructive ways. So let's get back to it. Why do people have opinions and judgments and criticisms? The answer is, excuse me, normally it's because of the entrenchment in ego. So that's fine. Number two, is it possible that it can be constructive? Yes. Who determines it? Me. Okay, so we understand that. So you can benefit from every criticism, every critique, every judgment, every opinion from everybody. That's cool. So then now let's take it to an even more enlightened thing. Is it possible that they actually don't mean harm? Is it possible they're actually trying to help? Is it possible they love you? And is it possible you've hurt them and they've just found an awkward way of repaying you, that they're not so enlightened to say, you know, when you did that, that hurt my feelings? Is it possible that if someone was to say, James, you're a jerk, is it possible that I could turn and say, wow, I get the feeling I've offended you. Would you be kind enough to tell me what I did so I can apologize? Right? Because maybe that you're a jerk is just their way of saying you hurt my feelings. So maybe there's a bit of gold inside of all criticisms, opinions, and judgments, which means not only can I make it better, it can make me better. Then, especially if it's family, right? If someone close to you has a judgment on you, you know what? It's often an awkward way of loving. It's often their way of trying to be loving. So back to my mom. I'm so sad that my mom might see this. I love you, mommy. The best mommy ever. My mom, the way she says I love you is, you look ridiculous. You should get a real job. And so that's how my mom says I love you. And I've learned to interpret it. And by the way, I'm not kidding. That's how she says I love you. So when she says something like, get a real job, Walmart is hiring, you could be a great greeter, that's not her way of saying, I don't think you're smart enough to make it in business. That's not what she's saying. What she's saying is, I love you and I want to know you're safe. And so if I can interpret what she really means, almost all criticism, judgment, and opinions is either a blessing to me or a self-judgment, that what they're saying about me is what they feel about themselves. So all opinions, judgments, and criticisms are an opportunity for me to benefit, like really benefit. It can also help me understand if I've offended somebody, but it can also be they're attacking themselves, but using me as a scapegoat. And so every time that someone has a judgment, an opinion, or a criticism, it's an opportunity for you and me to be loving towards ourselves, to get the benefit of it, and loving towards others, because there's something behind it. Either they're hurt and I'm the one who hurt them, or they're hurt and they're mad at themselves and they're taking it out on me, like it's my business. Either way, opinions, judgments, and criticisms can be incredibly beautiful blessings, like going to the dentist, not necessarily comfortable, but it can be turned into gold, a breakthrough in a relationship, a breakthrough in insight. What if you didn't know you're upsetting everybody? You're like, why doesn't anyone like me? And someone's giving you criticism. Shh, listen, maybe the secret is there, right? And so if you will listen to the opinions, judgments, and criticisms, because they might be helpful, all of a sudden your world might begin to turn. I hope, pray, and trust that you will listen and consider the possibility that it is not necessarily a bad thing when people have opinions, judgments, and criticisms. It may be the path to the improvement of the relationship and the improvement of you and I. Be blessed. Take all the stimuli and turn it into gold. Love, joy, peace.